I'd like to call this meeting of the Architectural Review Board and City Planning Commission for the City of Elkhorn to order. It's Thursday, April 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Wetke.
Here.
Hunter.
Here.
Stocko.
Here.
Boardman. Giesland.
Here.
Meinel.
Here.
Schroeder.
Here. We've got the minutes of the March 20, 2025 meeting. Did everybody get a chance to review them? Any changes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Our first item is Seth Waddle Quick Trip Company for the vacant lot South Lincoln, Highway 67. The first thing we have is a public hearing on this issue. I'll read my statement here. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Plan Commission of the City of Elkhorn on April 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard in council chambers, city administration offices, 311 Seymour Court, Elkhorn, Wisconsin, for the purpose of hearing all interested parties, their attorneys, or agents with respect to the application submitted by Seth Waddle Quick Trip for a conditional use permit to allow gas station, convenience store with car wash located on the vacant lot east of South Lincoln Street, State Trunk Highway 67 South. The property is more precisely identified by the tax parcel ID YA 517200002. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard for this public hearing? Asking again, anyone at all? Seeing no one, will close the public, no, we're not closing the public hearing. Thanks for catching me. You're up.
Okay, if I may. So just for the benefit of those in attendance as well as the members of the Plan Commission, so there was a little bit of confusion with respect to this application because it is in an existing planned unit development. So you're obviously familiar with Creekside Development that has come forward, has its PUD in place, and also has the specific implementation plan in place with respect to the residential portion of the development. But as a part of that, it was reserved, the SIP was specifically reserved for when the end users came forward for the commercial portions of the development. So where the confusion lies and why a conditional use is still needed for this particular site is because the PUD doesn't set or open the door for any kinds of uses in B5. The underlying zoning district still does determine whether something's a permitted use or a conditional use. And so it still does need a conditional use hearing, even though it's within the commercial side of this planned unit development. So I'm recommending that the Plan Commission pass a motion on the conditional use public hearing to table it, to keep it open and table that to the May 1st date for your next Plan Commission meeting. And it would be, let's see, yeah, so to give us time to publish because it requires the Class 2 notice. So that will stay open, so we would see that come back for the conditional use hearing piece of it on May 1st.
I would make a motion to move it to the May 1st meeting.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
So you can still move on to the SIP discussion and recommendation as well, in terms
Okay.
of the overall application.
Okay. Who would like to take that? Who'd like to start off?
I can start with an introduction. We do have the applicant online virtually as well. Seth Waddell from Quick Trip is online with us if you have any questions for him. But the application you have before you this evening is for new construction development located at the vacant parcel on South Lincoln and the intersection of East Year Road and Creekside Boulevard. It's one of the commercial vacant parcels that fronts the residential portion of the Creekside development. As Elaine stated, the underlying zoning district is B5 Highway Business District, and it does have a planned unit development overlay district. So they are seeking additional specific implementation plan approval. The zoning and SIP is also consistent with the 2040 land use plan, which classifies this site as highway-oriented commercial. So they are looking to place a Quick Trip fueling station and convenience store with 10 dispenser fueling canopies and a 2-lane diesel canopy. They would include 8 truck parking stalls, like semi-truck parking stalls, and then 37 standard car parking stalls, as well as an additional car wash. This Quick Trip, they are proposing a 24-hour operation for all services. It has an architectural design that is very consistent with the other Quick Trips you see. And in addition to that, they're hoping this store would generate approximately 25 to 30 new jobs with an estimated annual payroll of $500,000. So we did do a pretty in-depth review of this. We've worked quite a bit with the applicant and myself and all staff, Matt, Adam, Naomi, all of us, as well as Trent, our fire chief, have spoken to the applicant. There are several things to consider with this project as we review it to see if it meets all the requirements of our ordinance for SIP approval. So in my staff report, I did go through all of the requirements of the specific implementation plan. And the proposed plans do include most all of the information that is required. You will see at number 9 in my staff report, there was not a specific development schedule submitted, but the applicant has verbally discussed this at staff level. They're hoping the Quick Trip would be built sometime in 2026 after the intersection is finalized and utilities are brought to the site. Quick Trip expects construction to take approximately 22 weeks to start and final occupancy. So they're hoping to move pretty quickly once they are able to get all the site work complete. In terms of area, yard, and height requirements, the site plan does meet all of the requirements of the B5 zoning district. They're not requesting any leniency. So sometimes with planned unit development projects or specific implementation plans, you'll see the applicant is requesting specific leniency on setback requirements or those sorts of things. Their plan is not. It does meet all of our requirements in the underlying zoning district. Going into a couple of the other reviews that were completed, like I said, staff reviewed this request. I will let Naomi speak on her engineering review. There are some things in there that are very important that we would need to consider this evening. The fire department has also done a full review of this project. They are here this evening, and so they can certainly go into detail on some of their review comments. They do recommend the addition of 4 fire hydrants on site, and they also recommend that the east side curb be painted no parking. And then a couple of things that we just want to open up for discussion with the Plan Commission this evening. So as a part of this submittal, and Naomi can probably go into more detail on this, the proposed development was requesting 1 ingress point off of Highway 67. When I wrote my staff review, it was unclear whether or not the DOT would allow this access point or not. It does seem like at this point the DOT is not willing to grant any access off of Highway 67. We've asked a couple of different times. We've tried to see if the speed limit could get reduced in some way, but it doesn't seem like that's feasible at this point. So I don't think that we will see an access point off of Highway 67. One of the flexibilities needed on this site would include the request to have multiple ingress-egress points, which our ordinance does not currently allow. our ordinance states that a business should only have one ingress egress point, and right now, without the Highway 67 access, Quick Trip would be proposing 3. So that would be a requirement that would be something the Department of Public Works would have to sign off on. The proposed site would not be able to sell any beer, wine, or liquor per our city ordinance requirements. We do not allow those sales to take place in gas station facilities, so that's something I just wanted to point out here. And then the signalized intersection would need to be completed prior to Quick Trip opening and achieving final occupancy. That's something we would have to discuss this evening. And then I think for more details on some of the traffic and some of the engineering items, I'll kind of turn it over to Naomi.
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah.
As Allison mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts with the Creekside development. You know, we're making our way through approvals of the Creekside access off of Getson, or if that north access drive is going to be part of the final ingress egress on to the Creekside development. We have, as you recall, the Deer Road Lincoln intersection, which requires state approval of the signalization plans. That's proceeding through its process with the state. And then we have the local road of Creekside Boulevard, in which we have, you know, our municipal code regulates entrance and exit off of that public road. So I do have Neil Steika is virtual. He is our traffic engineer, and he's been involved with Creekside in the larger development at this intersection from the beginning. So he's had multiple conversations with the DOT, and more recently with regards to the Quick Trip development. So I'm going to let him kind of give you some background on the discussions that have taken place and kind of his interpretation from DOT. So Neil, if you can hear us.
Yeah.
Oh, great. We can hear you. So go ahead.
Great. In fact, I talked with Art Bauman, WISDOT traffic operations engineer, this morning at a conference they were both at, and he agrees that, as Naomi and others have said, that the access, you know, specifically directly into Quick Trip would not be allowable given the constraints that are placed traffic operations wise. So he doesn't want to see it in the area within the intersection of that Creekside Boulevard intersection. He did say that he is willing to try to continue pursuing perhaps a shared driveway with a DMV location. He had asked before if that could happen, and it was not received well, but he could try again, knowing how much that access from 67 would be appreciated and would probably help operations overall of the ingress and the egress. He pointed out to there's a location in Waukesha that has a shared access with a DMV and a Quick Trip gas station. So there, it has been done before with the department. That is kind of where that stands. So we'll see where I think he is willing to continue to work on that, but it's not a guarantee that would move forward either.
Thank you, Neil. So Neil will be available for questions as well. There's just a couple other items I'd like to kind of point out with respect to my review correspondence that's in the packet. In particular, the application of the municipal code with respect to ingress egress off of the public drive. As Allison mentioned, the code specifically allows one ingress egress. If additional ingress egress locations are proposed, it's up to the discretion of the Department of Public Works. So we have discussed the layout of the proposed site plan. You know, the entrance off of 67 is at this point kind of off the table. We saw that entrance being very valuable for the movement of semi-trucks to come to the fueling station. If the access off of 67 was allowed, that would be the preferred route for the semi to get to the diesel pumps. Matt's got shown the traffic movements in red on the site plan that was provided by Quick Trip. In consideration of the 3 accesses off of Creekside Boulevard, we have a couple things coming into play here. We have the intersection improvements, which is a signalized intersection, requires that western median to be in the design that it's shown on the plans. So the western median then, as you can see, would block any traffic coming out of Quick Trip to take a left. So the first entrance, or the westernmost entrance into Quick Trip would likely be used, in my opinion, by passenger vehicles accessing the gas pumps. The middle entrance is valuable to the site as it is the only way to take a left and get back to the interstate for people that are using the convenience store and gas station. And then the far right entrance, you can see, is valuable for truck movements that need to enter the site off of Creekside Boulevard. So these semi trucks would come in, they would route through the site, they would stop at their gas pump, and then they would be required to exit along with passenger vehicles in the middle drive. So as shown, these ingress egress points are 5 feet wider than our current ordinance allows. With the PUD, the applicant can ask for flexibilities, such as these multiple ingress egress locations and wider width in the driveways, which may be beneficial to the flow of semi trucks through the site. This is hard, right? Because you have, if semis are going to be using the diesel pumps, I think staff has discussed these 3 entrance points make sense. They each have their purpose. We looked at, and there's a packet that's handed out, and we'll let Quick Trip speak to this memo regarding traffic flow. And there's an additional site plan that shows 2 ingress egress locations off of Creekside. We asked for this to be looked at to try to limit the ingress egress locations. This is, just a reminder, there's 850 units going in at Creekside. This is the major primary route for pedestrians, for cars in that multifamily residential development. So we want to ensure that we are promoting pedestrian access and servicing also the development that's to the east. So the new site plan, as you can see, or the site plan on the handout with the 2 entrances, appears a little congested with the semi-trailers coming in. They show it coming in off the westernmost entrance, and then they would again have to exit through that middle egress that allows for the left-hand turn. Actually, maybe this might be a good time for Seth to speak. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. Seth, I don't know if you want to give a quick introduction. Feel free to introduce your project and talk about your handout as everyone has it in front of them. So.
Yeah, perfect. Seth did ask, have a question going back to the public information meeting, Seth. So if you want to start with that, that's certainly fine.
Yeah, I just wanted a little bit of clarity for notes' sake about the motion that was made right away. I couldn't quite comprehend what the motion involved before it transitioned into conversation about the SIP.
Hi, Seth. This is Elaine Ekus, the city attorney. When we took a look at the submittal and the application in the packet, it became apparent that there was some confusion as to what the entitlement process, entailed for this proposal and what was necessary under the code. So the proposal is for a gas station in a B5, a PUD with underlying zoning of B5, which does require a conditional use for a gas station. So there is an the umbrella of the planned unit development that is placed over this property, but that doesn't excuse the requirements of the zoning process when somebody's coming forward with what is a conditional use. So on the agenda, there was a notation next to the conditional use public hearing that said application was withdrawn. And that was placed there because there was a belief that it was not necessary to have the conditional use, but it is a necessary component under the zoning code. So to comply with the required process, we had them open the public hearing. There was nobody to speak on that, so they've adjourned the public hearing to May 1st to allow time to renotice it and make sure that everybody understands that, yes, there is a conditional use public hearing on the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining that. And then I had one more brief question for Allison to confirm that liquor license isn't allowed for C stores per zoning.
That's correct.
I didn't hear the question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's correct. Alcohol, beer and wine and alcohol would not be
Oh,
permissible.
Yeah, yep, that's correct,
Okay.
Seth.
Perfect. Well, my name's Seth Waddell. I'm the development manager for Quick Trip. I had the pleasure of working with city staff on my submittal for this store. I know it's been a lot of really good constructive conversation back and forth to try and provide the best product for the city as well as the best product for Quick Trip. Obviously, the biggest ticket item is likely to be the access points, both on 67. That I would agree. It seems like we've kind of exhausted all opportunities to get that there, and so last week we had a good conversation with city staff about where we go from there. One thing that you get a lot of experience in when you do hundreds of Quick Trip stores over many years is that you start to learn the little things that help make the site tick. Same could be said for probably different areas of your careers, but when it comes to laying out a Quick Trip site, there's just little things that allow for the greatest efficiencies, which driveways are a huge item that help make our stores efficient. It comes down to how to get traffic in our site and how to get traffic out of our site. And also, like I highlighted in my memo, pedestrian safety. As is true, the more access points you have, typically there's greater concern for pedestrian vehicular conflict. But the ways we can mitigate those risks are, clear defined pathways, which would be sidewalks, crosswalks, or even providing painted lines to help guide pedestrians. Also, the other big item for vehicular movement is more predictable patterns. If you try and reduce the opportunity for a driver to have to question where they need to go next, you end up with safer movements, because if you can't go out that northwest access and you're forced to go out the middle one, people learn those routines, especially those who reside in Elkhorn. But as you saw in that previous Matt had up, we're going to be forcing truck movements in that first driveway, which is closest to the intersection, which would just lead to more congestion, as trucks don't move as quick as cars. When they pull into a driveway, they typically go half the speed. And then we're also forcing those trucks to egress through that middle driveway, crossing in front of the canopy, which for our site movement is just not what we would deem efficient and a high standard that Quick Trip likes to have. Obviously safety is a big factor. Diesel traffic is one of the more high risk items that we have on our site. So the ability to kind of separate our store and our smaller vehicular traffic from our diesel traffic means a safer circulation on our site. But that's about all I had for that, if anyone had any questions for me.
If I may, I think one thing to know as you look at this exhibit with the two locations off of Creekside Boulevard, we do not expect semi-traffic to take a right into the Creekside development. There's a traffic circle there, which, well, first of all, they're going to want to get back on the highway. That's the anticipated movement, is to go left and get back on the highway. So we would, this exhibit would likely not, that they would not take a right. We're not expecting
Yeah,
that.
and
Yeah.
I suppose a little explanation for that. When talking with Naomi and Allison in our meeting, I felt that having a lot of time spent looking at the site plan, I wanted to put it in the hands of someone who hadn't seen the current layout to allow for kind of a pure thought on the best way to lay out this site with the conditions of no Highway 67 access and only 2 locations on Creekside Boulevard. So she wasn't quite familiar with where the interstate was, and yeah, like Naomi pointed out, the trucks would not be going east into the Creekside development.
Yeah, it was kind of a last minute ask to have them take a look at providing an option with 2 entrances or 2 points of ingress, egress off of Creekside Boulevard, and he kicked this around pretty quickly. So it was helpful.
I'll just add, I think looking at the two and comparing the two, staff has ultimately determined that although the 3 points of ingress, egress may not be exactly what we want, the 2 points of ingress, egress is worse. In our opinion, it would just make the flow of traffic harder, more congested, as Naomi said, so. But it was good to compare the two because we were looking for an option to potentially decrease down to 2 ingress, egress points.
Our discussion with Quick Trip and Seth was that if truck traffic, diesel traffic, semi trucks are going to access the site, the 3 entrances off Creekside Boulevard allow for more efficient use of the site.
Yeah.
If 2 entrances are preferred, it would complicate the site and be less efficient for truck traffic. And so perhaps the conversation was maybe diesel's not then an option if the 2 egress locations are required. And perhaps then the site would not be viable for a Quick Trip, was the conversation that
For
we had.
diesel, yeah.
For diesel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some dialogue too. With regards to the 2 points of ingress egress, I think, as staff, we were talking internally and also too with Seth from Quick Trip, that this would be too close to the signalized intersection. You'd have trucks queuing here and possibly hanging out in the intersection. So you'd want them to enter in to, an ingress, egress later on in the site. So that's why this option really isn't a great one. And you do have conflicting movements between vehicular and semi-traffic having to use the same entrance or exit to leave the site. This entrance here, where, staff had wondered, well, would semi-traffic even consider using this 3rd entrance? Are they just going to want to use the first one, or the second one rather, knowing that the fuel pumps are over here? What that would do, though, is if someone were coming out, if you had a truck sitting here, they would not be able to get in. They would have to wait for that driver to get out. So they would either probably wait for this driver, for this queue to be released, and then they would turn in, or they would see the signs, which, I know we're talking about, how many people actually look at the signs. Would they just, wait and want to go in here, or would they choose to go through here? Which may end up building up the queuing back in here further if you've got trucks that are continuing to go straight. So those are some of the talking points that we had, with staff. I do agree that in consideration of the two options, that this one is probably creates more traffic congestion and points of conflict. And this probably is the better alternate, but it still has some issues, and that's why Naomi, we kind of all talk that, knowing that is diesel viable, knowing the congestion that we'll have. But and I want Seth to kind of circle back to and discuss the need, because I know he had mentioned, the need for diesel on this site.
Yeah, happy to provide something. I guess, Quick Trip or diesel products are something that Quick Trip is really trying to incorporate into a lot of their new developments, especially one that would be along a corridor such as the one coming through Elkhorn. We feel that it's a great offering to help invite guests to our store. We've had, recently, just a couple months ago, I was working on a project that the viability of the entire project was dictated based off of whether or not diesel would be allowed for our development in the first place. I won't speak for Zach as a real estate manager who couldn't be here today, but I know it's one thing that would definitely be considered. Do we want this to be more of a neighborhood store that just offers our commodities and the fuel canopy, or do we see this being not necessarily a corridor or not necessarily a neighborhood store, but a corridor style store? So, yeah, it's definitely something we have to consider.
Obviously, you want to create a good experience for people that are coming in. Does your team have concerns with the truck movements the way that it is without having the 67 entrance?
We've definitely had a lot of conversations about it. We provided the access point because we thought it would be a great opportunity for that circulation. I think we can all agree that it would have been, the best case scenario. We can accommodate the Creekside Boulevard access points without 67. It was more so, how do we bring a good percentage of those truck traffic movements through the site prior to getting to the intersection, because we'd still end up with southbound traffic and eastbound traffic if there's any coming to our site. So that Creekside Boulevard would still have to accommodate those.
Yeah, I think every staff member was, we were all definitely fighting for ingress egress off of 67. Went back and forth with DOT, friendly conversations about, again, altering speed limits, maybe doing a shared driveway. So keeping semi-truck traffic off of Creekside Boulevard by having that point is definitely desired, but it's likely that we won't get it. So you're bringing a lot of truck traffic down Creekside Boulevard. So.
I guess I would think that the SIP is largely going to hinge on what happens with the CUP in terms of whether or not, that gets approved and whether it's just a, gas only or diesel is included with that. So if it's not clear to the planning commission, I don't think there's, I don't think the staff and particularly zoning administrator is looking for approval of the SIP at this point, because we have to obviously make a decision about the CUP first. That's going to dictate everything about this site, so I just want to make that clear because I don't know if it was clear from the discussion we've had thus far.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Man, I'm not sure if this is your realm, but the Quick Trip that is on the north side of Elkhorn right now, it has, a right turn lane when you're coming down Hidden Trail, just a right turn lane to get in. Now, is that something that we requested, or they wanted a separate other egress into it, or?
I wasn't here for when that Quick Trip came to town. I don't know if Naomi was. But I believe, I don't know there's diesel out there though, is there?
There's not diesel.
No, no diesel.
So I think there's just one entrance. Actually, no, there is two. There's one off of Hidden Trail and then there's one off the side street there.
Well, there's actually two.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, but you know, that right turn to me is useless. You know, people do use it, but there's a little, 5-inch sign that says no left turn when you're coming from like Dollar Tree, and the sign in Quick Trip is down, and people still go in and out, and I think that whole thing was just one way to get in. So I don't know if that was a Quick Trip idea or was our request or.
I am not sure about that one.
But I definitely wouldn't want, like that right turn off at 67. To me, that just causes problems because people come out of there, and it's obviously not big problems, but there are problems. And I think there's going to be more traffic at this Quick Trip than that one.
I would agree. Especially with all the, with the apartments at full build out, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Chief, do you have any comments or concerns?
That I had the hydrants that I had talked about. I talked about hydrants with Naomi, and that was included in the comment section.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, to be clear, the hydrant locations are still an outstanding item. We're going to work through that.
Yeah, I just want to mention too, Seth's been, great to work with. We've been able to jump in kind of last minute Zoom meetings to discuss a lot of the things that we've been talking about tonight. And again, he's been responsive. He's been really timely in responding to our concerns and providing alternates like that one with the two entrances in a very fast manner. So we appreciate that. It's been a good experience working with Quick Trip.
Absolutely. I'll reiterate that. Seth has been great to work with. The Quick Trip team has been great to work with. Naomi's worked with Seth in the past on other Quick Trips in the state of Wisconsin, so he's very knowledgeable. He knows what he's doing. He knows the ins and outs of Quick Trip, and I don't think that they would present a plan that would fail. I think they've probably designed enough sites to know, the need for their facilities. But I would say at this point, there are some things that from a staff level, we do need to just clear up. If we're not getting Highway 67 access, I'd like to see updated plans with that removed. Finalize the Creekside Boulevard intersection plans if we're, based upon the discussion this evening, if we'd like to see 3, if we'd like to see 2, what the Plan Commission's recommendations are for Creekside Boulevard. And then as Naomi and Trent stated, we have to work through some very small, minute details like the fire hydrant placements and that sort of thing. But we do have to come back for the conditional use permit application to finalize that as well. So it would certainly be something that we could bring back in fairly short order to the Plan Commission and hopefully have some of those details ironed out.
So what you're saying is, we want to just move this to the May 1st meeting too? Is that your recommendation?
To keep it consistent, that's probably what I would recommend at this point. That gives staff an opportunity to just finalize the plan with Seth and his team, keep it all together, and then kind of go from there. But I would love to hear the Plan Commission's overall thoughts on this proposal and this site plan, and see, is there anything else that, may need to be changed or modified in order to come back?
I guess the question I would have is how long is it going to take to get an answer back as the use of the DMV road in this plan?
I would not count on it, to be honest with you. I think if they were to be able to do it, the time frame in which would probably also be an issue. That would be my take, but I'll let Naomi comment, or Neil maybe. Neil's had the most conversations with Art than probably anybody about this particular site. Neil, do you want to comment
Yeah,
on?
sure. Art Art Bauman wasn't very committal on whether or not it could or could not happen today. I don't think he'd pursued it once and it was denied. That doesn't leave me with a great feeling that the second try will let it happen. At the same time, I could reach out to him again tomorrow and ask him kind of the timeline for when he would hear back, if that even is a possibility. I think it would be helpful to know, like you said, Matt, even if it is a possibility, does that fit in within the timeline of trying to get this development built?
Matt, can I ask a question real quick?
Tim?
Yes. Yep.
Hey, Ryan Cardinal, I'm sorry, I'm just jumping in. I'm here for a different project, but since I have everybody here instead of playing the phone tag afterwards, can I just ask, maybe this question for Neil, if I were to work with obviously Creekside's not built right now, and we need the turn lanes and all that for the intersection, but that other median is not final. If we were to rearrange some of those medians and work with Quick Trip, is that something that would help this whole situation? I don't know, Neil, is that something you've even looked at yet?
Are you talking along Creekside Boulevard?
Creekside Boulevard. Because, obviously Quick Trip's aiming that center driveway for that center median, but that's not built yet.
Yeah, we've looked at different options there. We've talked with Creekside. We gave them the option to look at that median and
Okay.
readjust, knowing that we could talk with you and
Okay.
get that to come together. But if you see an opportunity there that we haven't considered, we would be able to look
I'll try
at
to get on the phone with Quick Trip tomorrow. And
Okay,
see what we
the
can figure
concern was the traffic crossing Creekside Boulevard in front of the circle. So we didn't want the left turn necessarily to be able to happen where that third entrance is. Yeah.
That was the main point. Our thought was, can we just combine 2 and 3? 2 and 3 being the middle one and the far right one, by sliding it, the one that would allow the left turns out down further towards the roundabout, if you will. But that was a concern, the traffic movement's coming out of that roundabout.
Okay, well, I'll work with Quick Trip. If there's anything we can do to make it work, we'll do it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I think that's a good question that you had, and we can come back. Neil, if you want to talk to DOT about a timeline, we can bring that back at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think for this discussion, we have to assume that there's going to be no access off of 67.
So if there's going to be no access off 67, it seems like the 3 entrances off Creekside are the only workable option. And do you need that direction from the Planning Commission to proceed? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, if the Plan Commission is concerned about the traffic movements that we talked about tonight with all of the different options, I think it's more so, are you comfortable not having, or do we want it to be more of a neighborhood store? Does the traffic congestion warrant having the diesel or not?
Two entrances are much more efficient if diesel is not calculated into the picture.
I mean, I can see Quick Trip's point, why they want it there right off of 43. On the other hand, I think with all that's being built there, and it'll continue to develop to the retail on the front part there, that traffic has been getting back onto 67 has been a problem since we started. So I would be in favor of not having any diesel there. That would eliminate the truck traffic. That's how I feel.
Anyone else like to jump in on that subject?
I tend to agree with him. The truck traffic, I hate to go back to the store that we already have, but there's truck issues there, and that's just for the semi that's servicing Quick Trip. And you add, 5 or 10 other ones, to me, it's gonna be a problem.
I would be open to diesel also, and I think didn't the DOT say that no new entrances off of 67? Wasn't that the
They would
verbiage
allow
they used?
2 entrances off of 67.
No new ones,
No,
correct?
that's correct.
Yeah, so the only entrances allowed are the Creekside Boulevard and then the one to the north that what we had talked about when we reviewed the Creekside development. The issue with this one is pretty much location as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would still be open to the idea of diesel, until we have definitive, we can't have access from 67.
So that would be a deal breaker. If there's no access from 67 at all, in which, at the DMV,
Yeah, I still
as
would
far as
love-
diesel goes.
I still would love to see diesel there, because I don't think it's going to be nearly as busy as we envisioned, because there's the other side of the expressway that has diesel. But yeah, it's, diesel in our city is limited to only a couple places on the north side of the expressway, so.
It's a lot more we had 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
I don't know, what kind of direction are you looking for, Allison? Sounds like
So at this
There's-
point, I can have Elaine touch on this too, but really, I think we're looking for some direction on the overall design of the site. And basically, what staff is saying is that if the site has diesel, it works better with 3 entrances and exits. If we are not going to allow the flexibility on the multiple entrances and exits off of Creekside Boulevard, and the discretion from Plan Commission would be to drop down to 2, then the overall traffic on the site is very congested, and it makes it harder for the trucks. So if we dropped down, then the site may no longer be viable for diesel because of that. And so, we could do that, but then it would maybe be more of like that neighborhood convenience store versus like a interstate stop-off point, like the Love's Travel Plaza. And so it kind of all stems from the flexibility on the ingress egress and how this site is going to be designed. Not so much do we want diesel or do we not want diesel, but the way that the site is designed and the allowance of ingress egress points is going to really, I guess, almost justify if they're going to be able to do diesel or not on that site.
So back to my point earlier, so at the end of the day, until we get an answer on the access to the site, I mean, bottom line is we're hearing some reservation from some of the plan commission members about having diesel on the site. There's some reservation, there's some openness to it, depending on the access. So until we get an answer, we really can't make much of a decision. And again, we'd have to still have the CUP discussion, which is going to dictate, because if the CUP discussion says no diesel on the site, then obviously that's going to impact what you decide on the site layout. So again, at this point, I don't think we're looking for any direction at this point, other than the feedback you've given is helpful to know that kind of where you're sitting. But in terms of action items, we have more work to do, and we'll come back in early May. The one thing too, just that I understand Quick Trip's obviously trying to move quickly, as as Ryan Cardinal just mentioned. There's still a lot that has to get done in terms of intersection and whatnot. So they're not in a position that Quick Trip can start moving dirt in 2 months or 3 months. So I don't, hopefully there's not a feeling of pressure here that you guys have to, immediately make a decision. Now, according to Quick Trip, they supposedly have to satisfy their conditions on the purchase offer by the end of May. I don't know if Ryan has additional news on that, but so theoretically they wanted to get a final answer by May, but they're not supposed to even close on the property until the fall. So just as an FYI. So.
I wasn't listening.
Oh, okay, well.
And I think Seth is still on. So Seth, if you have anything, that you'd like to add just briefly before the plan commission, goes whatever direction we go this evening, feel free.
Yeah, are we, not to, it's by no means my intent to try and strong arm a decision from anyone, but not having diesel on this site, not only, the decision to restrict no diesel on this site is bigger than that for us. It could mean that the project is no longer viable as a whole. When we look at the investment we're looking to make for a project like this, it's, what can we offer and also what can we get in return? So being able to offer something like diesel in a location like this is something that takes seriously. But
I just want to note, I could completely agree with you, Seth. I understand exactly what you're saying. I was thinking that the whole time. I'm looking at these 3 access points, and I completely think this is workable with diesel. It's just my opinion. But obviously, I know, I think, Allison, you said we kind of need some updated, documents here and kind of showing that without the access off of 67 here. But I still think this is workable. But that's just my opinion.
yeah, and, to even add to that, obviously, I don't believe the TIA described specific types of vehicles, but as far as volume goes, Creekside or the post-development numbers do support high volume traffic on Creekside. But thank you.
Thank you, Seth.
I guess just a slight follow-up on that. Yes, the TIA did talk about volumes, but the TIA was focused strictly on volume and didn't have anything to do with site traffic flow. So there's a difference between, I don't think there's concerns about necessarily volume of traffic as it is the people getting in and out of the site. So.
Yes, fair to say.
So do you have enough direction to move to May 1st?
Yeah, I think at this point we have enough direction from everyone. Staff can work together with Seth to go over everything that we spoke about this evening. And then if it's the motion to, table the SIP discussion until that May 1st meeting, that's probably how I would move forward. And then we'll go ahead and bring everything back with updated plans and some updates on all the different moving parts for you at that time.
Well, I'd like to make that motion to table this to May 1st, if everybody's okay with that.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to our second item here, which is Tom and Carrie Fisher, Track Property Group, Track Elkhorn Project, Lot 2 East Morrissey Drive. A site plan, conditional use permit, and a public hearing. So we'll do the public hearing here. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Planning Commission of the City of Elkhorn on April 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard in the council chambers, city administration offices, 311 Seymour Court, Elkhorn, Wisconsin, for the purpose of hearing all interested parties, their attorneys or agents with respect to the application submitted by Tom and Carrie Fisher, Tract Property Group, for a conditional use permit to allow a 30,000 square foot multi-tenant warehouse and distribution center on vacant lot 2 off East Morrissey Drive. Is there anyone here for the public hearing? Would anyone like to be heard? Asking a second time. Anyone? We'll close the public hearing and move on to the site plan and conditional use permit. Like to, Allison?
Yes, thank you very much. So as you mentioned, this is a site plan and architectural review as well as a conditional use permit for a new construction project here in the business park off of East Morrissey Drive, Lot 2. The zoning of this parcel is M2 General Manufacturing District, and the 2040 land use plan is community commercial, so it is consistent with the future land use map. The applicants, Tom and Carrie Fisher, are here this evening, as well as their civil engineer, Cardinal. They have been really excellent to work with. They're looking to relocate to the city of Elkhorn, and they would like to create this multi-tenant building on approximately 3.89 acres of land. It'll be in total 30,000 square feet with 5 separate units separated by a demising wall. 4 of the units will be 5,000 square feet each, and then 1 of the units will be 10,000 square feet, and the 10,000 square foot unit will be owner occupied by Tom and Carrie Fisher. And that's where they will hold their business operations. They own Fishstone Studio Inc., and they will utilize the building for manufacturing, art studio space, and warehousing. They manufacture and distribute proprietary artisan concrete products. And the artist, Carrie, she would manufacture public art such as monumental sculptures on site. So the additional 20,000 square feet of space would be leased to smaller businesses that have manufacturing or warehousing needs. And then the reason they need a conditional use permit this evening is for that warehousing on site. So in reviewing their application, they do meet all of the requirements of our ordinance in terms of area, yard, and height requirements. This is, like I said, in the M2 zoning district, so they're meeting the requirements of that zoning district. All of their traffic loading, parking, and access is in compliance. Everything looked good on their site plan. I will note this plan is very similar to the Quick Trip plan. They are asking for 2 ingress-egress points versus 1, which is required by ordinance. So if we were to recommend approval this evening, the DPW would need to approve that second egress point. The fire department did do a review of this project as well. And they're recommending the addition of 2 fire hydrants to the front and rear sides of the building, centered on each outside parking area. And he also mentioned that no fire suppression system is required as long as the firewall is ran from floor to roof deck between each occupancy with no breaks. I will let Naomi touch on her engineering review.
Thank you. I have a review letter dated March 24th in the packet. Since then, most of these comments have been addressed. The site plan works from a 2 ingress-egress location, in my opinion. The ingress at the south, is it? That's south, right?
West.
Well, west, thank you. At the west, it looks to be like people that are using the facility come in and park, and then the back access is for loading. I had some comments related to the storm sewer that the drainage will now sheet flow off into the stormwater pond, so that comment has been addressed. The pavement cross-section has been clarified, and the sanitary sewer and water service locations have been identified and very detailed in the plan set so that we are comfortable. There is one outstanding comment with respect to the fire protection, and the fire chief is here, so I'm going to punt to him.
So currently, the only hydrant is across the street on the other side of the road. I'm assuming you're the gentleman I talked to on the phone? Okay. The reason I wanted one in the front and one in the back is the driveway does not go around. I'm looking at the back, I'm looking at fuel loads. I don't know what's coming in there being warehouse, manufacturing. The other thing is with the hydrant on the other side of the street, or if we're in the front, other units coming in, we utilize Mavis quite a bit here, so we're using other departments. I don't want to cut anybody off with getting other apparatus into the scene. So my point was, if anything's in the front of the building, we'd have a hydrant on the front to be able to get in any of the front doors, and any of the loading area / storage area in the back of the parking lots, we'd have a hydrant there to access to come through a back door to fight a fire.
So the recommendation from the fire department would be to add 2 hydrants to this site for fire protection. And that would be the only thing that I have as a condition.
Does anyone have any questions? Anything going on?
Can we say something?
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, no, go ahead. If you want to come up to the podium, maybe?
Ryan might be able to
Yeah,
speak more.
so we exchanged a couple emails, and I know it was late in the day. Would the one on the north side of the building, would that not meet what you need? And it's a decent ways to run a 6-inch line down there, but if that, it's within the 350 feet, which is what the ordinance is, if I understood it correctly.
Right, but this is also a dead-end road with a dead-end main on that road that's not looped. So my other problem is, if I have one in the back, I have one in the front. If we have one of these units is involved, I could have more companies go around the back and grab a different hydrant for suppression efforts. We're already gonna have a challenging issue with water supply being a dead-end hydrant. It's a dead-end street. Dead ends down there at Max Packs.
Okay. We do meet the ordinance with the one, however, I don't want to cause any life safety issues, but, okay.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a last minute surprise to us about this. We thought we had it all under control and figured out, so the added expense for my wife and I will be fairly significant from what we can tell so far. So we were hopeful that perhaps we could, have one in the front or the north side that would be sufficient. It would help out the fire department. It'd also help us out, and we just thought that might be a fair compromise. But we don't want to do anything that's going to be unsafe to anybody. We want to make sure we're building a quality building for us, for the tenants, and for people in the city too. So
If we can do some fire flow calcs to see if that north one provides all the fire flow you need, would that suffice it?
My problem, it's not even the flow, it's trying to get other units if we do have something on fire. We hope it never happens. Trying to get everybody past there to grab a hydrant farther down the road, bring it back in. We're already pulling off of this one. It's gonna be, with it being a dead-end hydrant, we're gonna have water issues to begin with, especially if you're throwing up an aerial stream at 2,000 gallons a minute.
I have a question so when you say in front, are you talking east, or are we talking north?
North is to the left of the page.
Okay, because I'm looking at these 2 circled, okay.
So I was thinking we put one anywhere on the north edge of the building.
Right.
And that would be anywhere in there that works.
And then you said you've also got one across the street.
There is that existing one on the other side of the street.
Is that, where's that relative to the site?
It's
Right
about
where your mouse
it's about
is.
middle of the site, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah, right where your mouse is.
Once I pull off that hydrant across the street, though, that street is done for ingress and egress. No one's coming out of the street, no one's going in.
So that's why we were saying put one on the other side of the street. I'm not trying to be combative, I'm just not understanding if that one is a flow issue, why would another one down on the other side of the building solve flow issues?
I'm just thinking of things in the back of the building, tagging a hydrant on the back side versus tagging a hydrant on the front side. Dropping someone off the truck, tagging a hydrant, what are we gonna catch on going from one driveway to the other, trying to drag it around?
If we gave you a path on the back side of the building, would that solve it?
On the far south side?
Right.
If we did that, there's really be no need for a secondary driveway. I'd still want, because now we're talking more than 350 feet to grab it and come all the way around the front of, the other side of the building.
Trent, I just have a question. If there's one right across the street, about center of the building. If they put one in the back of their parcel, would that be sufficient for you, knowing that hopefully this building never catches fire, but if it does, you're probably going to close down the street anyway. Would that be sufficient to use the fire hydrant across the street and then have them place their hydrant in the back of their parcel?
Not ideal. It's not ideal. I mean, east and west would be the best. Like I said, if we tag the hydrant across the road, that road's shut down. We're done
Okay.
with it. Especially with if we have other units coming in from other jurisdictions, the road's shut down.
Yeah, I just have a question as well. How many other buildings in the industrial park or elsewhere in the city have fire hydrants in the back of the building? I mean, has that been common, or do you know, Chief?
Max Packs has them right on the building because there's a water line running through the building. So their hydrants are actually attached to the building. There's a Storts connection right on the building because they built right over a water main.
But in terms of some of the other buildings in the industrial park, do we know? I mean, do they typically have hydrants in the back, or?
I do not know what you guys have done previously. I do not know.
Just for reference, the Elkhorn storage site that we permitted about a year ago, that has an additional hydrant on its site. It has one in the front off the main, and then there was a requirement to put one in the back, near the back. I don't
That's the
think it's-
unit off Highway H.
Yep, yep.
I will definitely leave that to the plan commission's discretion, and certainly the fire chief and his expertise. Other than the fire hydrants, I have also recommended approval of the project, and I'll just go over the conditions that are listed with the approval, to ensure that the applicants would be agreeable to those. So I have that the project should be developed in accordance with the submitted plan of operations. Any dumpsters on site shall be fully enclosed, and the property owners will be responsible for applying for any applicable permits pertaining to the fencing or screening of those. Outdoor storage or parking of vehicles, semi-trucks, or trailers shall always be on a hard surface and never on grass. We have adequate loading areas shall be provided so that all vehicles loading, maneuvering, or unloading are completely out of public ways, so all vehicles never need to back up into public ways. The operation shall not locate, store, discharge, or permit the discharge of any treated, untreated, or inadequately treated liquid, gaseous, or solid materials of such nature, quantity, toxicity, obnoxiousness, or temperature that might run off, steep, percolate, or wash, or be harmful to human, animal, plant, or aquatic life. Applicant shall provide reimbursement to the city all costs incurred by the city for review of this project. The applicant accepts the conditional use approval and zoning permit, and beginning the project means that you have read, understand, and agree to the following conditions of this approval. The tract property group, their heirs, successors, and assigns are responsible for full compliance with the above conditions. The property owner is going to be responsible for placing a Knox box on site and coordinating access with the Elkhorn Fire Department. Property owner shall be required to submit signage plans for approval if new signage is being added. The property owner shall comply with all city lighting ordinances, all noise ordinances. All fire department review comments shall be included in these conditions. All engineering review comments shall be included in these conditions. The DPW shall sign off on 2 ingress/egress points, and the owner shall be responsible for applying for all occupancy permits for all businesses that occupy the leased spaces. Sound okay?
Just real quick, if I can circle back to the hydrants, what if we had one on both corners of the front of the building, so you had it to both drive lanes? That would
So you're saying put one up near each driveway?
yeah.
Northeast and northwest corners, basically.
That way, it would limit the amount of run. We'd have to go all the way to the back of the building. It gives
I'm
you
good with that.
both sides.
I'm good with that.
Okay, if you can make that a part of the condition, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so we would modify the fire chief's conditions to include that 2 hydrants would be added near each driveway point.
You want them near the driveway corners, or you want them near the corners of the building?
No, they can be up by the driveway, because that way as we turn in, my guy's jumping out, tagging a hydrant, the driver's heading down to where they're gonna go.
Okay.
Sounds good. If all of that works for you, okay.
Were those conditions agreeable? No questions? And-
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that-
Doable? Yeah, there you go.
Well, on that note, I'd like to make a motion to approve upon the new conditions that the updated fire hydrants in the northwest and southeast, is it? So, yeah.
Northeast, northwest, yeah.
Second? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? To move this on to council, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have lost my voice. Was.
Yeah, there's some changes. Yeah, it looks like 23. It sounded familiar.
Yeah, are we all ready? All right, we've got Robert Mangan is the applicant for Northern Management Company, Christopher Carr for West Evergreen Parkway, a project concept review and discussion. So we'll let you start it off. Tell us about your project.
Great. Guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Thanks. I've got Bob Mangan here, the owner of Northern Management. My name's Chris Carr, the vice president of the Sigma Group. We're excited to present our concept here of a project that we have the land under option for. A little bit about, it's kind of far away. See if I can move this up a little. A little bit about Northern Management. Northern Management was founded in 1972 by Bob. Generally, Northern Management was built on a vision of expanding multifamily development in secondary markets. So he owns, I believe, over 9,000 and manages over 9,000 apartments across Wisconsin in over 48 communities, and maintains quality housing and exceptional services. Bob's firm does all their own management, so there's not a secondary management, and generally they own and keep and they don't build something just to flip. So it is a business that they are proud of what they do and really maintain and high quality development. They do bring in housing to some secondary communities, not only some bigger Milwaukee and Madison, and found a really good niche on bringing some high-quality housing developments for communities that need it. So that's one of the reasons why we're excited to be here tonight. And recently, we've done over 15 recent projects in communities, and we continue to remain growing in our portfolio. And we still have active projects. Right now, we're working on a project in Lake Mills, and we've done other recent projects in the area. I'll talk a little bit about the site. So this is about a 35-acre site on the west dead end of Evergreen Parkway. So I've got the aerial here. And generally, it's all open to the south, west, and north, so a lot of open space, a lot of environmental areas. There is single-family residential to the northeast. You can kind of see the development there in the white area. There is commercial and some senior living adjacent to the east, and there's also some open lots still in that development. And then, as I said, and you can kind of see the area that's all treed is really significant, very nice environmental areas. So it's a mix of floodplain, wetlands, and some primary environmental corridors. So really a beautiful area there. And in our opinion, a great place to put a residential community. I just pulled out the current zoning context just to give an idea of what the current zoning is. I believe a lot of the purple is a business zoning, but there is residential in the area. And then as you can see, southwest and north, a lot of open space, environmental area, stuff that most likely will not be developed. One thing that I want to bring to everyone's account is that right adjacent to our site, just east of the pond, is a senior living community. So although some of this is business to business further to the east and to the southeast, senior living, which is very comparable to multifamily development, is just to the east of us. As we see a lot, is multifamily can be used as a good transition between residential and commercial. So if you look at the residential to the north, we think that multifamily does make sense in this area as a good transition, and especially adjacent to some of the environmental areas to the west. This is the concept plan that we started with. We are proposing 16 unit, 2-story buildings, so a lot of hyphens in there, but it will be built in phases. So typically, especially on a project like this, Bob likes to build in phases just to make sure things can get developed and get absorbed. So this could take, anywhere between 5 and 7 years, get it set, get it occupied. So it's not something that we will build it all at the point. This will take a while to develop. These buildings, and I'll show them a little bit later, are a very popular building, which is a 2-story direct entry. So especially with COVID, many residents really like the direct entry. So there's no shared corridors here. So if you have an apartment on the first floor, you have typically an attached garage that you enter on one side. And then if you are on the upper side, you'd have a direct stair up. So everybody has their own entry in these. It makes you feel like you have your own house. And these are very popular development compared to some of the typical multifamily where you have a shared corridor. Very popular across Wisconsin and across the country for development. Bob does a clubhouse at every entry, where all the leasing and the maintenance is. We're not showing it here, but we typically will put a maintenance building that's either connected to a garage or something like that, because these do take, he wants to make sure that they're taken care of and have people in available space for that. We have proposed that only development about of half the acres. So of the 35 acres, what we would like to do is reserve a majority of all the work and put it in a conservation area. We're open to whether this would get reserved as a conservation area. It could be handed over to Elkhorn, and you guys could do it as a park. So I think one of our big sells is that we are committed to reserving a lot of this and providing a long-term reservation for the community of this space. Another big advantage of these types of developments is they're all private roads. So other than the cul-de-sac, which we would build a cul-de-sac to the public road sectors. All the roads would be private, meaning no snow plowing, very little maintenance for the community, for public works. All of it is maintained by the development, which is a big advantage. We're not here asking for any TIF money. We're not here, so the actual push on additional roads and utilities that the community would have to pay for is almost negligible for a very large investment. Stormwater management, we would handle all, meet all state and local codes. And although we're not showing it, I see it in the thing, we do plan to have connected walkways and amenity spaces. We haven't laid them exactly out yet, but I expect, especially with the trail system, possibly a trail system for the public to be able to utilize some of the conservation easement if that was something that the community was interested in. Typically, can be some amenity space, whether it be a playground or play areas or dog walks. Those are all things that typically on a development this size, we would be looking to bring in. We have been working with the zoning and we're understanding, and we did look at the comp plan. I did pull out some pieces that I think do connect very well with our project. The planning goals in the 2040 comp plan include nature and environment, maintaining a balanced relationship between development and the environment, and protecting high quality air, water, and trees. And we think we're doing that with our development. Talks about housing, providing adequate and diverse housing. I think diverse is a big piece here. Not everybody at this point can afford new single-family housing. Some of those costs have gone way up. And in order to make housing affordable, and I think diverse is the other piece, these kind of developments appeal for a broad spectrum of your residents. So many people, you have seniors that are sick of maintaining or are not able to maintain their own landscaping and housings, and they're looking for a place where they can go in and not have that. And then you also have young professionals who are not ready to buy a house or commit. These are high quality housing options for them. And then this really is a very large investment, maybe between the range of $40 to $50 million of investment all the way through. And that's a huge tax base, not only for the tax base, but of the amount of people to help support the existing commercial and other amenities of Elkhorn. We also looked at the objectives and strategies of the comp plan. Again, they talk about nature and environment. They specifically talk about protecting environmental corridors and natural areas, and taking advantage of opportunities to preserve open space. So we think our project lands right in that goal. Talks about encourage high quality design of the developments. We'll look at some typical renderings of what a building typically looks like. And then the housing, it does talk about supporting other housing such as duplexes and multifamily housing, and requiring residential developments to provide pedestrian and recreational amenities, all pieces that we're looking to involve in our project. And then I think there's some additional details on the housing goals and objectives in the comp plan. It talks about provide diverse housing options, and then provide options compared to single-family home, which are very significant costs right now. And this is a good buffer and a good option for people that are looking at it, not only new residents to the community, but existing people that are looking for a different option. This is just a typical architectural finish of what a building typically looks like. You usually have a brick base, and then some amount of other type of materials. The front of the buildings, although it looks like a lot, are typically garages, but then the other three sides don't have garages. So this would be the only side, would be the front side where people have direct entries. You can see the doors. Most people that are on the first floor, they would enter through their garage, or some of the other doors might get you to the second floor units. So tonight, we're open. We do believe that this is a good fit for the site. The site has been there for a very long time. A lot of that has not been developed, and we think that multifamily is a good fit for the site. We think it's compatible with the adjacent uses. It does provide a huge investment to the tax base. We are serious about providing and protecting the environmental resources on the site. And in our opinion, it is consistent with a lot of pieces of the comp plan and the objectives and strategies. And it provides a diverse and different housing option for the community. So we're here for a concept, hoping to get some feedback and really hoping to get some initial support to help us move through the process that we would need to do. So we're here for questions, and Bob's available if you have anything for him. So thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to take this?
What is that zoned right now?
Right now, the parcel is currently zoned B6, Commercial Business District. And there is some area behind there that is a lot of wetlands. And then the future land use plan has that area designated for community commercial. And then that back half, that's, the wetland area and stormwater, that is designated as parks and recreation.
How many units would that be?
We have it about in the 220 to 230. This is just our first run at what we think would go there again, but this is a phased approach. So that could be over 5 to 8 years before that type of quantity. We were looking at about 3 phases typically, each building, so maybe 4 to 5 buildings per phase.
I'm sure you're aware of what we have going now with Creekside.
Yep.
That number plus the number at Creekside, I think we'd be kind of lopsided here with multiple housing versus, single family. Adam, is that? I mean, I'm just asking you where we would be in a balance.
Yeah, I mean, well, and we're going to be updating our city comp plan in 2026, so we'll be able to dive into that. But, I mean, yes, I think there would be the ratio would be out of whack with what the cities previously, at least in the prior 2016 comp plan, had identified.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I address the comp plan? Okay. So I was asked a couple questions about your discretion as a city through the Plan Commission and the council as to changes to your comp plan. So I just want to make a couple comments about that. So your comprehensive plan is a plan that the city put in place about the development and how they would like to see development occur within and land uses occur within the city. So that decision, the comp plan decision, is what we call a legislative decision. It's a very discretionary decision because you're making a decision about how you want the land use to happen in your community. So I want you to be aware of that because it's different from when you're making a zoning decision that has to be consistent with your comp plan. There are some rules about that, right? So when you're deciding on a rezoning application that's in front of you, one of the questions you ask is this consistent with our comp plan? And if it is, that's an important factor and it's supposed to guide your decision making, right? But here, the comp plan sets the stage for that decision making. So it is a legislative discretionary decision by the community. So I just wanted to mention that. They're two different creatures. And the point is it's really up to the city how you want the comp plan, what you want that comp plan to say. So that sets the stage for your zoning decisions.
I can just also add a couple of other things. I did a very brief review of the conceptual review that was presented, and I did take a look at our comprehensive plan. And within our 2040 comprehensive plan, that will probably be updated in the next year or so, but right now we're still going to use the 2040 comprehensive plan. We have several different housing objectives and goals within that plan. So I've listed those, and some of our housing objectives within our comp plan is to maintain predominantly single-family owner-occupied neighborhoods supported by other housing such as duplex and multifamily housing to meet the needs of a diverse residential population of all sizes, incomes, and age levels. As you mentioned, we do have other multifamily developments coming in, so potentially approving more multifamily may kind of disrupt that balance that we have, as one of our goals is to maintain predominantly single family. Number two is to carefully manage the residential growth of Elkhorn to ensure new development is contiguous with and creates connections to existing city, its neighborhoods, and its transportation network. This site, although I'm sure you could put residential on it and you would find tenants and it would be successful, it does not have a good connection to our city where it's located. There's no pedestrian access. There's nowhere for those tenants to walk to. There's nowhere in that area that connects to our other city centers. So that's a concern of mine. And item number three is that residential developments will incorporate pedestrian and recreational amenities, preserve natural features, and incorporate open space in the new neighborhoods. That is something that they have mentioned that they would do. Certainly, they would preserve the natural features and then incorporate that open space, but we're still missing that connection piece to the rest of our city. And then four is that new residential neighborhoods provide architectural variety and high quality design. So those were just some things that were mentioned in our comp plan. Right now, the way that the parcel sits, the zoning is not consistent for residential development of any kind. It's a business zoning designation. So they would, potentially need to petition to rezone. But again, as Attorney Ekus mentioned, when we petition to rezone something, we take a look at our 2040 comprehensive plan. And the 2040 comprehensive plan states that this would be a community commercial area, not a residential area. So that then would maybe leave another option for a planned unit development. However, we still look at that comprehensive plan when we are looking at a planned unit development overlay. So in general, my comments were that the proposed concept plan is just a concept plan, but there are several details and key elements that are missing. So there's a lot of items we don't have information on. It's not currently consistent with our future land use map or our comprehensive plan housing objectives. It would possibly require a plan development, and it would possibly require a comprehensive plan amendment.
I guess my concern would be, and I don't know if it was post-COVID or whatever, but we've been selling a lot of commercial land in the industrial park over the last couple of years. It seems like it's just ramped way up. And I believe our supply is getting shorter and shorter. Is that true? Can anyone speak to that we're running out of commercial property?
I would definitely say that that's true. There are very few, if not any, commercial lots left in this park now, very few. And they've kind of all sold more recently within the last year or so. There's not a lot of other business areas with vacant land right now unless the land were to be annexed in.
And I can also say that the business park out there has developed very well. I mean, there's a variety of different businesses in there, and everything from a dentist to a tire store, So I'd like to see that area continue in that direction. That's my.
Anyone else have any comments or?
I guess I can respond to a few of those. When I looked at the comp plan, and it was older, I think when you look at the percentage of apartments, although it may be going up, I don't think you're out of whack at all, which would be a typical community, especially right now. Single-family development at this point with new subdivisions is not financially viable very much. And have you had a single-family project?
Yeah, we got one going right
Okay,
now.
okay. They can be challenging. And that's why multifamily work has been done. I want to remind everyone, there is a senior living, what I would consider multifamily residential right next to here that was approved by a PUD. So we do think that there is some consistency of what we're asking for. It's sitting right next to a very similar project. We do agree it's not right downtown, but not everyone, there are some people that really appreciate more of a nature. And if you can imagine having a development where people are there and utilizing and living there rather than, I don't know, a manufacturing building that's sitting in this spot, I would argue that this is maybe a more appropriate use. So obviously, we understand that a PUD is most likely required to move this forward, and we are open to providing pieces that will provide public benefit, including the conservation easement. So that's why we think it's appropriate, especially with the adjacent senior living being there. And we do understand the comp plan, and when you look at a comp plan, it's hard to imagine a whole city and get every pieces of it right. So it's not abnormal on a rezoning to have to change a comp plan.
Anyone else? Chief, have you had a chance to just at least look at the concept that looks like, I guess we put you on the spot about fire suppression all night. You want to take a whack at this one?
Yeah, in fact, I did make a phone call before the meeting to our DPW. When I talked to Matt, we've done some water flow back here. We have problems flowing 2 hand lines back there without losing pressure. So I don't know what the plan is in the future to get that system or get that area looped into the rest of it, but right now it's pretty dismal at best when you're down there trying to flow just 2 inch and 3/4 hand lines, which are basic attack lines for a small house.
Thank you. And where do we go from here? What would you like to do?
So, and I'll ask too if Naomi has anything to add after as well, because she did take a look at the project. But at this point, it's just a conceptual review. So no, formal action needs to be taken. It's just an opportunity to give all of your feedback and thoughts to the developer and to the applicant here this evening, so that they can ultimately decide how they would like to move forward and what their next steps would be. And if they, I think now would be a good opportunity to kind of raise any concerns you're having about the proposed project, or any positive comments you may have, so that they know. But ultimately, if they do decide to come back, I think a concept review is a good opportunity for them to get that feedback, so they know whether or not they can gauge if they're going to have the city support to get the project approved. Naomi, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, thank you. I did take a look at the concept plan for this development, and this development of this piece in general has some challenges. There's the dead-end utilities there, the water main. It's not immediately evident how we would make a loop system to that. It would be complicated to get that looped. So there's a consideration of providing public utilities to a development such as this. I regret that I didn't have a comment on traffic impact analysis, but we would be adding roughly 220 to 230 units. We'd like to take a look at the traffic, because there is only one way out of the site. I did notice that there is a parcel within the city limits that is owned by the homeowners association of the development to the north, which is not in the city. But it's very clear if you look at the kind of the aerial, there's a road stub that I'm almost certain this bump out here was put on the lot line to make a connection. That subdivision, I think it's an RV park, has only one access out as well. Granted, that's not in the city, so, you know, there'd be some coordination with how to make that connection. I think it would be important for emergency services at a minimum, to have an emergency access rather than just have one access point to a development such as this. There is in the comp plan a location of a Walcomet pumping station for future use. That line is shown to be right down the middle of this property. You know, usually those things can be relocated, but there would be some coordination with Walcomet to understand their needs through this property before development could occur. I think those are pretty much the major considerations I see with the site.
And just to sort of follow up, on the prior discussion about the, you know, the comp plan. So when the comp plan was adopted by the city, it showed us having a 60-40 split between owner occupied and rental. If you look at the current census data, Delavan's got, in terms of owner occupied, Delavan's at 62.5%, Elkhorn's at 56%, Burlington's at 54.5%, Whitewater's at 30%, which makes sense. And then if you look at Janesville, they're at 66%, McWanago's at 74%, and so, and the county average in Walworth County is 70% owner occupied. Now, again, obviously, you know, we're talking about county areas as opposed to cities, yeah, it's gonna be higher, but, so, you know, right now, we're already around, you know, 55, 56%. So if you add potentially with Creekside coming in, it's gonna skew that percentage. Now, on the flip side, you know, we do have potentially 150 new homes coming in for the, you know, Sugar Creek Ridge development, plus the, if Harvest Point does move forward, which again, we keep waiting for Blinsky to move forward on that, but that would be another 32 units of owner occupied. So, you know, certainly, yes, some of the Creekside apartments are gonna be offset by the new owner occupied housing, but it also is gonna depend on how much, you know, does Creekside do, you know, how many of the planned apartments that they are gonna build actually get built, you know? Like, there's no guarantee they're gonna do the full build out. So that also is tough, I think, for the city to anticipate where we're at in 10 years. So I just wanted to give you some ideas to kind of where we're at right now in the owner occupied ratio. And furthermore, there's been a lot of discussion about the zoning, and I do think the zoning is a bigger concern, at least from the commercial side of it, because again, we do not have a lot of commercial property left in the city. So I think that's another, you know, important point that's been raised. But sorry, just one last thing. I mean, I don't dispute, and I appreciate obviously that you guys are trying to offer, you know, a multitude of housing options. That's something that's been a priority for us in terms of trying to provide houses, duplexes, condos, apartments. We are trying to provide a variety, and yes, your style apartment is different than, let's say, what Creekside is planning, which, you know, they're doing 4-story buildings as opposed to, you know, direct entry that you guys are doing. So I completely acknowledge that you guys are offering a different product.
I'd like to make one comment. I have a similar project in Lake Mills. There's 144 units, and it's right, it's visible from I-94. And many of the residents are young professionals. One works in Milwaukee, the other one works in Madison. And many of these occupants, the renters, have bought, they've liked Lake Mills so well that they've bought single-family homes in the area. So, you know, I mean, the same thing could happen here, but I would think it would be, you know, because of the niceness of that site, you know, with the wetlands and the ponds, and, you know, I mean, it's really, I invite you to go out there and take a look and see how beautiful the back part of that lot is, you know, for, you know, nature. So that's just a comment that I have.
Thank you. Anybody else? have you gotten the feedback you
Yeah,
need? Or
I mean, are we hearing there's very no support for multifamily and change of zoning from this plan commission? I mean, is there anyone that would support, the project?
You know, I'll just note in my own opinion on this one too. I completely agree with you both when it comes to consistency, but when it comes to the senior housing there, and you know, but I think commercial, that's a big problem for us because we really don't have much. I definitely agree. We have sold a lot, and so it's just yeah, but just my opinion.
yeah, I guess we really appreciate you coming in, but
Okay.
we're not hearing a lot of positive on this end. So, but thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time.
You bet.
Thank you.
Yep. Do we have any general discussion items?
I don't have anything. Adam, do you have anything?
No, and even if I did, I wouldn't bring it up because I think
Let's just keep that short.
We've got April 17th, we've got a couple items on the agenda, and then we've got the workshop for the Historic Preservation Committee.
Yes, I did just have a couple of questions about that. You had mentioned that somebody from, I believe, Whitewater.
Yes.
HPC was going to come. Have you contacted her or has Julie contacted her? I do not need to.
You do not need to.
Okay.
I've contacted her and invited her to the meeting. She agreed, and I will touch base with her again before then.
Wonderful. Okay. And then, secondly, I'm assuming a good majority, if not all of the HPC members will likely be in attendance. Do we need to notice anything for quorum, Adam? Yeah. Okay.
Probably notice it up as a joint meeting. If you know they're going to be here, that's the way you should handle it.
Okay. I mean, I think they'll be there for sure, so.
They're gonna be there, aren't they?
That's what they sort of sounded like, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, well then I could notice it as a joint meeting then, and we can work through that. I just wanted to confirm. But other than that, we're good for April 17th, and then we have a couple things for May 1st as well.
Anyone else have any questions or comments, concerns? All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.